Hey, how's it going, my fellow Homo sapiens? It is I, Tom Smith, and I absolutely adore Star Wars games. Well, at least most of the old Star Wars games. Back in the day, they were pumping out some of the best games ever. You got Knights of the Old Republic, Battlefront 2, the Rogue Squadron games, the Jedi Knight games, and of course, the Lego games. This was all because of LucasArts and them licensing out their IP to anyone who has the talent to make amazing games like Raven Software, BioWare, back when they were good, Pandemic, and even LucasArts themselves if they had a team working on a game. Republic Commando. But for the past 10 years, we haven't been getting that. We've only had 4 games with 2 of them being horrible and the other 2 being good. And it's all because of EA and their stupid exclusive agreement for only them to make Star Wars games. But in 2021, Disney announced that they will end that agreement to form LucasFilm Games and would license out the IP to anyone. Sure, EA will still be making games, but it won't only just be them now. So it sounds like they might actually go back to the way things were with LucasArts. It honestly sounds like the future of Star Wars games is looking bright for sure. Today, I want to explain and show my side clearly on why we might be entering another golden era of Star Wars games again, and why this is going to be a bright future for Star Wars games. Like I said before, LucasArts is pretty much the reason why we've got amazing and coded games within the Star Wars brand. LucasArts has been a thing since the 80s, when they used to be named LucasFilm Games, and made games such as the Super Star Wars games, The Secret of Monkey Island, and even some Indiana Jones games. Then they changed their name to LucasArts, and that's where shit really hit the fan with games like KOTOR 1 and 2, Battlefront 1 and 2, the Episode 3 tie-in game, Episode 1 Racer, the Rogue Squadron games, The Force Unleashed, Jedi Academy, Jedi Outcast, and just so many games that are just so damn good. Just to get my point across on how good we had it back in the day. God, I sound like an old man talking about the good old days. And I'm fucking 22! But honestly, we did have it really good back then, and I'm going to explain and show why just to get my point across.
So, you figured you'd just steal my ship for your getaway and leave me high and dry while the Sith turned the planet into dust? Sorry!
This game rocks. Knights of the Old Republic is still, to this day, my favorite Star Wars game. And that's saying a lot since there are a ton of great Star Wars games out there. Developed by BioWare, when they used to be good. KOTOR is an RPG inspired by Dungeons & Dragons, where the combat is based off of dice rolls and where you have a ton of quest lines. You get to level up your stats with every character. You have companions that you can take with you on your journey. You have a ridiculous amount of dialogue options and choices that you can choose. There's so much to this game that it makes it a true RPG instead of just a boring tie-in game to a movie that has some RPG elements in it. Like, no, this game through and through is an RPG. Honestly, if this game didn't take place 4,000 years during the Old Republic era in the Star Wars universe, then BioWare probably would be very limited on making this game. It was a huge risk that LucasArts and BioWare did, because there was not a lot of knowledge when it came to the Old Republic, and would have been a safe bet just to go with either the Clone Wars era or the era of the Empire. But no, BioWare sticked with their guns and chose the Old Republic. So that way, they'll have more creative freedom on the story they wanted to tell.
The evil walks among us.
When I say this game is an RPG, I mean it's a full-on RPG. Character customization, character progression, emphasis on the story and dialogue choices, companions, how the combat works, quest lines, side quest lines, different outcomes within the story, different endings. There's so much to this game that makes it a true and great RPG that I can go on for hours. But I'll just say this game is amazing, and for any RPG fan who hasn't played this for some reason, I would highly recommend it. I won't be talking about Battlefront 1 all that much, because even though it is a great game, the sequel was just so much better. It expanded elements from the first game, and it did what the first game did even better. If I had to sum up what the Battlefront games are, then I would say they're pretty much the Battlefield games but Star Wars. So yeah, of course these games are amazing. Big sprawling battles with huge maps and a ton of soldiers, droids, and troopers all on the map. The game is just all-out war, and it takes you to the most iconic and classic moments in the universe. The game's had a really fun multiplayer multiplayer that you could play for hours, and since this is in the era of Xbox Live and LAN, you can squad up with a couple of the homies and just have a blast on heroes versus villains on Mos Eisley. I mean, for God's sake, you can play space battles in the game. Space battles! You can get into a ship at any point and just fly into outer space and take out other ships. You can go inside other ship bases, take out their power resource, and go back to your ship and fly away to your next objective. Dude, you don't see that kind of stuff in video games back in the day. Hell, you don't see that type of stuff in video games right now. It's honestly way ahead of its time in terms of stuff like that. It's awesome. And I'm completely forgetting stuff like how you can play major characters in the franchise too, with heroes and villains. Characters like Obi-Wan Kenobi, Mace Windu, Darth Maul, Darth Vader, Emperor Palpatine, Luke Skywalker, and all these iconic and lovable characters from the movies. Not to mention Galactic Conquest too, and how much inspiration it took from strategy games. There's just so much great content to this game that it's quite insane that they pulled this off in 2005. Meanwhile, in 2017, DICE couldn't even add Galactic Conquest to their own Battlefront 2 game. Ugh. Oh man. Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy. If you want some awesome lightsaber combat with really fun FPS missions, these games are for you. Besides Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Outcast and Academy has some of the best lightsaber combat I've ever seen and played. It's seriously that good. The combat is silky smooth and very responsive. You have some force abilities to play with too, and you can go up against other force users too, and these battles are just, they're so fucking good. These battles really highlight how fun the combat is in this game. These games are also first-person shooters, especially in the beginning of Jedi Outcast and some missions in both of these games. You have so many weapons you use, like grenades, a sniper, a pistol, a shotgun, and pretty much weapons that you would see in any FPS, and it plays very well in this. The blasters feel great to use, and so do the grenades and how they handle, and there are some pretty great weapons you can use, like the Boltcaster. There's just so much to this game that can also be qualified as an FPS as well, and a really good one at that. Also, Kyle Katarn is just such a Chad, by the way. In the old canon, he took the Death Star plans from the Empire all by himself. He didn't even need any help from Rogue One or whatever. No, he just took the Death Star plans and just left. Man's a Chad. Jedi Academy is pretty much the same thing as Jedi Outcast, except you get to customize your own character, how they look, what race they are, and how their lightsaber looks. Not just that, but also you get to choose which mission you go to first, after you complete your first training mission in the Jedi Temple. The game gives you a decent amount of freedom and decisions, and I really like that. Besides making your own character and making your decision on where to go, Jedi Academy is pretty much just Jedi Outcast. They're practically the same game in terms of combat, gameplay, soundtrack, and everything else, which is not a bad thing at all. I mean, if it ain't broke, then don't fix it. You want to fly in an X-Wing and carry out some flight missions for the Rebellion? Then this game is for you. Seriously, man, when it comes to flight controls and how it feels to fly the ships in the game, even to this day it feels amazing. Flying within a planet's sky while taking out TIE fighters and doing objectives is insanely fun. I'm usually not a massive fan of air combat games or just these types of games in general, and I don't really play them all that much, but I can see why people find them fun, and this game is one of those really fun ones. I haven't played the sequels, but I heard those games are just as good, if not even better than this one in terms of control and what you can do. Anyways, if you want a flight game set within the Star Wars universe, then this game is for you. A Jango Fett bounty hunter game? Sign me up, please! This game is sick as hell. There are a lot, and I mean a lot of people who would love a new bounty hunter game in the Star Wars universe nowadays, including myself. And with this game alone, there's a reason why. Not only do you get to play as Jango Fett, but the game is super fun to play. The shooting and gunplay feels amazing, the art and level design are great, and the gameplay overall is just so much fun. There's a mechanic in the game where you can scan NPCs and anyone within any level to see if they have a bounty on their head. And if they do, you can either kill them and receive your reward that way, or you can tie them up and send them to the person who sent out that bounty in the first place. When it comes to how big of a reward you get for bounties, it all depends on whether you kill your bounty or spare your bounty's life. If an employer wants the bounty alive, then you tie them up and send them to the employer, but if they want them dead, then you just, well, kill them. The bounty system is so damn cool, and I hope we get something like this in the future. And I really hope we just get another bounty hunter game again, because there's just so much potential for one anyways. Oh yeah, boys, Lego Star Wars is the GOAT. It's a masterpiece. But in all seriousness though, this pretty much appeals to children, which is great. It's literally just a children's Lego game. And for a kid's game, this is a pretty damn good one. I'm not lying when I say that, by the way. It has collectibles, fun stages, bosses, and all sorts of stuff. I used to play these games when I was a kid, and I loved them. It's just awesome that even children can enjoy some awesome Star Wars action too with these games. Last but certainly not least is Force Unleashed. And honestly, at this point, what can I say about this game like I did with the rest of the previous games when it comes to how good it is? This game is a hack and slash in the style of something like God of War, Devil May Cry, and Ninja Gaiden. It has fun and great hack and slash combat with awesome ways to use the Force. Some really cool set pieces and action sequences, and the game is just overall fun. Also, Starkiller as a character kicks ass. As you can see, not only do these games have incredible quality to them, but also just look how much variety there is. KOTOR is an RPG, Battlefront 1 and 2 are Battlefield-like games, Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy are first-person shooters and third-person combat games, Rogue Squadron is a flight air combat game. Bounty Hunter is a third-person shooter. Lego Star Wars is a masterpiece, is a family game. And Force Unleashed is a hack and slash. There's so much variety to them that each game feels completely different from one another. And the only thing that they have in common with some of them is the fact that it's set in the Star Wars universe. These games are insanely good and varied in terms of different genres of video game. It's also one of those occasions where it's quantity and quality. Not one or the other, but it's literally both of those aspects. And it's because of LucasArts and how they license the IP to other studios. Star Wars games as a whole was just out of this world, pun intended, and it seemed like it was going to be better with Star Wars 1313 and First Assault on the way, but then something big happened. In 2012, George Lucas did something that no one was expecting, but yet made a lot of sense considering how badly received the prequels were.
Gungas.
And that is when George Lucas sold Lucasfilm in its entirety to Disney.
What?
Now, back then, people didn't know what to think of it. There were people that were happy because that meant George was out of the picture, but other people were skeptical about the future, especially for the future of LucasArts. But we wouldn't know what that future held until 1 year later when Disney shut down LucasArts, canceled all the games that were in development, and gave the license to make Star Wars games exclusively to EA.
What? How can you do this? This is outrageous. It's unfair.
Oh god, why did you do this? Why? And with EA of all publishers. EA! The company that won the worst company of the year twice in a row? Why? And it doesn't get any better once we actually get into the games that they made and how many they did make. It's honestly kind of insulting, but let's just get this over with.
This sucks, man.
It's treason, then.
Alright, first off, I'll address the elephant in the room. Yes, Battlefront 2 has gotten a resurgence over the past couple of years, and has been a lot better since launch. And I will say and admit that that's awesome. Battlefront 2 nowadays is a lot of fun. It has a lot of personality and charm to it, and I love it. But back then, yeah, these games were terrible. I'm not going to say much about the first Battlefront because there's nothing much to it. It's just super bare bones and really boring. Even to this day, there's very little content to this game. This game does not have a lot of heroes and villains. It lacks in map quantity. The UI is nothing special. No single player. And there's nothing really to do here. I'm not joking when I say that for this video, I played like 2 matches for this game and I already got bored. That's how bare bones and boring this game is. There's nothing really to this game here. It's just boring. With Battlefront 2, on the other hand, it is a totally different story. Well, not in terms of quality though, because at launch this game was also shit. No. This game was bad for different reasons. For starters, the campaign was awful.
Do you have a favorite method of falling asleep?
The characters were bad, the levels were bad, the music was whatever, the story was painfully bland, and the only good thing about this campaign was the flight missions, and that's it. Everything else about this campaign was complete and utter garbage. What? What the fuck? The amount of content in this game is, yet again, lacking. This game does not have a lot of heroes and villains, it lacks with map variety, the UI is nothing special, and hey! Wait, this is just like the first game. They literally didn't learn anything. What the hell? Surprisingly though, this is not the worst part. And if you know anything about the new Battlefront 2, then you know where I'm going with this.
No! It can't be! No!
Woo! Loot boxes, baby! That's exactly what everyone wanted in this game. People definitely love loot boxes. God. Man, what was EA thinking? Of course anyone would guess how this was going to go down, especially if you know the story already, but man, it's just still baffling. Oh, but guys, you just don't get it. EA and DICE said it's a sense of pride and accomplishment. No, I'm not joking. EA actually said this. Seriously? I paid $80 to have Vader locked? The intent is to provide players with a sense of pride and accomplishment for unlocking different heroes. As for cost, we selected initial values based upon data from the open beta and other adjustments made to milestone rewards before launch. Among other things, we're looking at average per player credit earn rates on a daily basis, and we'll be making constant adjustments to ensure that players have challenges that are compelling, rewarding, and of course, attainable via gameplay. We appreciate the candid feedback and the passion the community has put forth around the current topics here on Reddit, our forums, and across numerous social media outlets. Our team will continue to make changes and monitor community feedback and update everyone as soon and as often as we can.
Jesse, what the fuck are you talking about?
Wow. I wonder how many downvotes this got.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah. Let's just say these decisions got a ton of backlash from fans, and even Disney themselves. So EA and DICE went back to the drawing board and removed loot boxes from the game. And after years of updates, this game is actually fun now. Well, I guess you can't escape the power of the gamer.
All the oppressed groups shall prosper, especially the most oppressed group of all, gamers.
After the horrible stuff with Battlefront 1 and 2, and the lackluster and horrible marketing for this game, a lot of people were not excited for Jedi Fallen Order, including myself. What they showed off at E3 was pretty bare bones, and it looked super linear. Now, I've got no problems with linear games. Hell, Uncharted 2 is one of my favorite games of all time, but this game just felt so linear that it looked like it played itself. So to say the least, people were not excited for Jedi Fallen Order. Then the game came out, and the game is surprisingly great.
Impossible. Perhaps the archives are incomplete.
A lot of people were very pleasantly surprised. It actually isn't super linear at all. As a matter of fact, it's more of a Metroidvania game, and the combat was more Souls-like than hack and slash. I don't know if it was EA or Respawn that had the idea for the awful marketing, but I'm going to assume it's the former since A, it's EA, and B, Respawn are the GOATs. But yeah, Jedi Fallen Order is surprisingly fantastic. The combat is some of the best lightsaber combat in any Star Wars game, besides Jedi Outcast and Academy. The exploration is really fun, the characters are great, and the story is really incredible, with it having themes of choosing your own destiny and having a choice even during dark times. This game isn't perfect, and I'll go into more detail on that later, but this game's positives extremely outweigh the negatives in my book. Respawn Entertainment are great at what they do, and Jedi Fallen Order is another game under Respawn's belt that turned out to be amazing.
Monkey.
Then we have Squadrons, which honestly isn't half bad at all. It's honestly pretty niche in terms of what the game is. Sure, it's a flight game as well, but it's more flight sim than just something arcadey like Rogue Squadron was. The game is great, but I haven't really played it all that much since it really isn't my kind of game. Like I said, it's not a bad game by any stretch of the means, but for me personally, I'm just not a flight sim guy. Also, I just completely suck at this game. I mean, if you look at the footage I'm showing, you can just tell how bad I am. But yeah, great game, but not my kind of thing. When it comes to quality insurance at the end of things, EA did better in the second half of their tenure with the license, but overall, it was just not great. Just the amount of games we got and how good they were with LucasArts, and then compare that to EA's overall time with the IP, yeah, it's not pretty.
That's what the kids call epic fail.
Also, not to mention the infamously cancelled game for Visceral Games. You know, the people behind fucking Dead Space? Yeah, they were going to make a Star Wars game with Amy Hennig at the helm. And for those who don't know, Amy worked on the amazing Uncharted games. And the footage they showed off looked great. But for some reason, EA shut down the studio and cancelled the game all because... and I'm not joking here, they thought people didn't like single-player games anymore and wanted to focus more on live service games in the future. Ugh, God, that hurts. So overall speaking, was EA's era of them making Star Wars games any good?
No!
So after all of EA's shenanigans, the future wasn't looking so bright for Star Wars games. Until early 2021, Disney pulled the totally unexpected, with them announcing that their exclusive licensing agreement with EA ending in 2023, and them now forming LucasFilm Games. Sound familiar? Now they'll be licensing Star Wars games to any game studio, just like how it was in the LucasArts days.
Yes. Yes.
Yes! This was honestly completely out of nowhere, but was totally welcoming news. The fact that they will be licensing Star Wars games to other studios and not just EA anymore is just perfection. And with the announcements of a new Indiana Jones game from Machine Games and Bethesda,
all of this just works.
And even a new Monkey Island game with the original creator of the games attached, it looks like the future of Star Wars games is finally looking bright again. Also, EA will still be making Star Wars games. However, it won't be limited to just them making the games. Instead, it'll be everyone else that will be making them as well, which is just the best news ever to come out of the Star Wars brand in recent memory. And not just that, but Lucasfilm Games have already announced a decent amount of Star Wars games already that we could look forward to. And here are those games. Let's start off with something that is around the corner, and from EA themselves. Jedi Survivor already looks awesome. Like I said before, Jedi Fallen Order was great, but it wasn't perfect. And it did have some flaws. There are some technical issues and glitches, the cosmetics and rewards for exploration were not that satisfying, there was no fast travel, and the dual sabers was not a stance of its own. But with the recent interviews and IGN videos, it seems like Respawn took the criticisms by heart and are rectifying those issues for the sequel, and that's awesome.
We had two fully realized stances in the first game, and that was the single and that was the staff. And we had a stance where you had a twin blade, which was something that we wanted to fully realize in the first game, but we basically ran out of time, and it ended up becoming a special move. It was a really cool moment, but it was not given the same amount of focus and execution. So that was like day one. We're gonna finish our twin stance.
Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order was a game that spoke to me on multiple levels. It successfully merged the risk-reward elements of From Software's Soul series with the power fantasy that inherently comes with being a Jedi. That said, it wasn't a perfect combination. Backtracking without any means of fast travel was annoying, exploration was rewarded primarily with underwhelming cosmetics, and I couldn't help but wish that I could do a little more with my powers than just push, pull, and slow. I say all of this because my main takeaway from roughly 5 hours with the upcoming sequel, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, is that I felt like I was systematically crossing off the issues I had with Fallen Order.
But besides that, it honestly just looks like a more expansive Jedi Fallen Order, which I don't mind at all since the first game was already great. The combat looks more fluid than ever, the traversal and exploration looks awesome, they included puzzle rooms to the game now, the levels feel more open and expansive than the first one, it looks like there's a lot more to do, and you can tame animals and ride them or glide with a pterodactyl. It looks like there's so much to this game that wasn't in the first one, while also sticking true to what the first game did, and what made that game great in the first place. I'm really excited for this game. I loved the first game, and it just looks like this game is going to be better than the first, and I can't wait. Since we're already on Respawn, we might as well talk about their two other games next. Yes, two other games. The first is a first-person shooter, which is being developed by none other than Peter Hirschman. Who's Peter Hirschman, you might ask? Well, he developed a ton of the old Star Wars games back in the LucasArts days. You know, games like the original Battlefront 2 and The Force Unleashed, and he was the creator of the Medal of Honor series. So yeah, this guy has some talent under his belt. Not just that, but also, this is Respawn we're talking about here. And they're making a Star Wars FPS. And they made Titanfall 2. You know, one of the best first-person shooters of all time.
Are you sure about this, BT?
Trust me. Good luck.
And Apex Legends, which is another FPS from them that feels so good to play with the movement and the gunplay. So a Star Wars FPS made by Respawn Entertainment? Yeah, sign me the hell up. I'm not going to cover this one for long because strategy games are also not my thing, but it is being co-developed by Respawn, and the other developer, BitReactor, was founded by developers who made the XCOM games. And as far as I'm aware, those games are really great. So if this is anything to go by, then this game is in safe hands. Next up is a Knights of the Old Republic remake? Yo, hold the phone, this is awesome! Unfortunately, this game came up with some hot water. For starters, one of the writers for this game is apparently a really bad writer. But that didn't bother me that much since this is an RPG, and there tend to be a lot of writers for an RPG game. And she wasn't working on the game for that long. So she was probably either working on a random NPC, or just a new side quest, and that was probably it. However, the game was being developed by Aspyr, who has only worked on ports on games, which is not the greatest sign, but hey, I'll give them a benefit of the doubt with their first game. But recently they've been cut from the project, and the project has been moved to another developer called Saber Interactive, because the demo Aspyr showed off to investors didn't satisfy them. So they halted production and let Saber Interactive make the game. Saber Interactive are the people that made the new Evil Dead game, Quake Champions, and Halo 2 Anniversary. Not bad games at all, but adding this with recent developments for this game, let's just say I'm cautiously optimistic about the game for right now. We don't know a lot about this game other than the fact that it's set in the High Republic era, and it's being developed by Quantic Dream. These are the same guys who made Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls, and Detroit Become Human. I honestly don't know how to feel about this since we don't know what kind of game this is going to be, and the fact that I just personally don't like their games all that much. So this game is pretty much up in the air. The trailer looks sick though, I will give them that. This one we also don't know about either, other than the fact that Ubisoft Massive, the people who made The Division 1 and 2, are making this game, and the fact that this is an open world game. I'm not too excited for this game. I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone has been wanting an open world Star Wars game for a long time, but this is Ubisoft making an open world game. Yeah, I'm not that hyped about it. I do hope this game turns out to be surprisingly great, but I don't know. We'll see what happens, I guess. Last but certainly not least, we have Skydance's Star Wars game, which we literally actually don't know anything about besides the fact that Amy Hennig is working on it. Yes, the same person who was going to be working on Visceral's canceled Star Wars game back in the EA era. And like I said, she worked on the Uncharted games as well. So even though we don't know what this game is about, already this looks like it has a lot of potential. I loved the Uncharted games, especially Uncharted 2, and I was really looking forward to the Visceral game at the time before it got shut down. This game has a lot of potential to be amazing, and I honestly can't wait to see what they do. So already, that is a decent chunk of games right there. Sure, some of them don't sound too promising, but it's still better than having 4 games out in the span of 10 years with the quality being different from each game. Already, we have 7 games to look forward to. 7! And that's only the games that have already been announced. For all we know, they could be working on more Star Wars games right now that they haven't even announced yet. When it comes to what I personally want to see for the future of Star Wars games, well, for one, I would love for someone to make a survival horror game in the vein of either Resident Evil or Dead Space. Another game I would love to see would be a stealth game in the vein of Metal Gear Solid or Splinter Cell. I would also love to see someone, besides dice of course, to try and make a Battlefront 3 with space battles, a lot of content, a great campaign, and galactic conquest. And I would love to see someone like Obsidian make Knights of the Old Republic 3. I also want LucasFilm Games to not only make big AAA games, but also small niche games as well. Something like what Xbox is doing with their games right now, like Hi-Fi Rush and Pentiment. I would like to see more variety in terms of different genres and different games being made. And lastly, I would like these developers to just have the creative freedom to do whatever they want for their games. But overall, the future of Star Wars games have never looked brighter than before, and I, for one, am really excited for this future. Thanks for watching the video. If you liked the video, subscribe to the channel and watch my Dead Space remake review, which both links to my channel and that video will be shown right now. Anyways, I guess that's it for me. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.